Good afternoon and welcome to the final session of Tame Bay Live today, which is a really exciting session because we're going to be introducing a brand new marketplace to the UK. And I'm delighted to be joined by its Managing Director, Kevin Cooper of EnableAll, and also Mike Adams, CEO of Purple. You've almost certainly heard of Purple if you trade on marketplaces, because eBay have for a couple of years sponsored Purple Tuesday, which is a day of awareness for accessible marketplaces. But today, EnableAll aims to be the marketplace which is accessible for absolutely everyone, and is a marketplace you're going to want to get signed up for in the near future. So I'm over to you, Kevin, to tell us a little bit more about it. And welcome to Tame Bay Live, Kevin and Mike.
Thank you, Chris. What a great intro for us. I'm going to get straight into a very short presentation. There's two or three slides we want to take time on today. And essentially, we're going to take 10 minutes. And hopefully, if we've got this right over the next 10 minutes, we will have given you enough excitement and energy about what we believe in, that you'll want to stay on for the rest of the session with Q&A, because we just want to have a conversation with you. And I think the numbers on screen right here give you an idea of what we're talking about and where we're at. And principally, the numbers are huge in terms of who has challenges shopping online and getting onto websites across the world. So without further ado, I'm going to click on the screen. There we go. 3 slides today. And like I say, 10 minutes. We're going to try and convey to you why this is important and why you want to be involved with us, what we're going to do, and what we are building to help you connect with a new audience, and then how do you get involved. So I'm going to hand you over to Mike, who is the absolute expert in all things to do with digital accessibility and how people shop online.
Thank you, Kevin, and delighted to be with everyone today. And in terms of the why, I want to introduce you to the disability market that equates to £274 billion. That is the purple pound, the consumer spending power of disabled people and their families. And it's a huge market where only 10% of businesses have any strategy to access it. And I think in a world of post-COVID, one of the things that has emerged is there's still the lack of inaccessible websites and marketplaces for 14 million disabled people. And the clickaway pound kind of has shown that £17 billion per year is lost through online sales as disabled people click away from marketplaces before making a purchase due to either poor accessibility or poor customer service. And the reality is making online marketplaces accessible is relatively straightforward. And if you do that, it opens up a huge market for you. And the reality is people like me, disabled people, we are, and evidence shows, the most loyal in terms of brand. So if you gain us as customers, then we stay with you for life. And what we are trying to do with EnableAll is create a marketplace that is brilliant, but just happens to be the most accessible. And you will see the commercial benefits in making your goods and service accessible, and of course the social impact as well. And just one figure to pluck out with one disability group, blind people, 60% of screen reader users feel that web content accessibility is getting worse. So today in our conversation with you, we want to change the disability conversation, and we want people like yourself to open and be more accessible to this huge disability market. So back to you, Kevin, in terms of the what.
Great, thanks, Mike. Simply put, there are 3 components we've seen, and everybody knows and everybody talks about with marketplaces. How does the technology we will own build connect sellers with buyers? And that's what we're building. So we are going to be launching in spring this year and we are a few months away now, a AAA accessible website. That means it's going to be the most accessible marketplace on the planet. It's very hard to get a AAA standard website. AA, which is the legal requirement, is pretty straightforward. We're going beyond that. It is a multi-vendor, multi-category dropship selling platform. So there are plenty out there. We're going with a very simple model, and we're trying to do it in a way that is it's easy for you to engage with us as possible. So right from day one, we will have integrations with Linworks, Channel Advisor, Shopify, and Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We're aiming for one other, maybe two other integrations from day one. And these are fully integrated with a robust enterprise platform. Our pricing architecture, again, we're trying to keep it very straightforward and simple, and we're going to be using pricing architecture that many of you are familiar with and have today, which is a straightforward monthly subscription rate that's very low. That's to help cover our fixed costs. A straightforward 10% GMV calculation, excluding electricals, which will be at 5%. There is a component in our commercials where we will be donating 10% of our commission to a charity. And that charity will be designated by the buyer. So whoever buys on our platform will nominate a charity that their commission structure needs to go to. That's a good thing because that gives us a full closure loop in how we can go back to those charities to acquire more customers. And to start us off, we've got a very large investment pool and relationships with those charities to attract customers. And our current plan and forecast and investment should get us to 1.5 million buyers within 3 years. So as you can see, from what Mike said, this audience is large. There is a lot of them. And the investment and the connections we have through the charities in existence today means we can be ambitious about how many customers we can go and attract to the platform. And when we get them, we believe they'll be loyal because all the data globally tells us they will be highly loyal. And then the extra component of our charity donations will help that over the line. So we're clear. We're going to enable you to connect to an audience that you're not easily connecting to digitally today. That's our ambition. So how can you get involved? Very simply, register your interest, and we can post these out and we can get this information to you. But EnableAll.com/merchant. We are planning to go live, as I say, in April. We're prioritizing clothing, home and garden, beauty as our launch categories. We're very clear that we need to have a full remit of categories ready for November when the peak trading online season starts. So we'll be expanding that through to September. If we have to expand into October, we will, but we are going to expand that to as close to full remit as we possibly can. We really are going to be all categories. So once you've registered your interest and let us know how you can connect with us, that's great. Connect with us on social media. LinkedIn, Facebook is going to go live in March. Instagram will go live for us in March. But connect with us. Help us spread the word through those connections. And then we aim to begin the seller onboarding in March. So we have another week of planning the detail out. The tech vendors and our developers have committed to our go live schedule and requirements. So we aim to start you onboarding in March. Our go live is April, May at a push, but April is the current target date. And like I said, category expansion through September. So get involved. And really, that's our 10 minutes. We actually do it in less. So I'm going to throw the whole thing out now to have a conversation with everybody here, answer questions and get engaged with you. So let us answer anything you've got.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kevin. That was a very, very quick presentation and appreciated because death by PowerPoint's not my favourite. Just before we get into questions, I'd just like to remind people, if you do have a question, just below the screen you're watching this, as long as you're watching it live, there's a box where you can submit a question. It'll come straight through to me, which I can put to either Mike, Kevin or both. So feel free to ask questions. But I'd like to kick off with a couple of questions. First of all, Mike, I want to know about the size of the accessibility market, because I think it's important to realise not everyone has a visible impairment. There's lots of people who might seem perfectly normal, but it might be stress and mental health, It might be learning, simply the ability to read language. There's so many impairments that you can't see. How are you going to cater for all of these people with the marketplace?
You are absolutely right, Chris. And as chief exec of Purple, when I go into businesses and I talk disability, instantly people think about the international sign for disability, which is the wheelchair. And wherever you go in the world, you know that sign. But the wheelchair represents 8% of the entire disabled population. And you're right in saying that 80% of disabled people, and there's 14.1 million in the UK, which translates to 22% of the population and 15.3 billion worldwide. And, when I talk disability, I'm talking about people with physical impairments like me, people with sensory impairments, whether they're deaf or blind. So the screen reader example that we used enables accessibility for blind people. But we're also talking, and the impairment that has exploded more than anything is mental health. Post-COVID, and many families are now touched who never thought they would be by mental health, and actually by enabling to declutter web pages, to make sure that the animation isn't shooting in left, right, and centre. There's so many things that make what we can create to make it much more accessible for people with hidden disabilities. And a really good example is colour blindness. There are 3 million people who are colourblind, and where websites and the marketplaces navigate through traffic light systems, actually people with colour blindness leave because they can't follow the system. So there's all sorts that we can do to this wide, huge category of 14 million people, and those associated with them, their families that get impacted, the carer environment as well, who support disabled people. So we think there is a huge market out there for people who increasingly want to buy products and services on a marketplace. Online is here to stay and it's growing, but need a good quality customer experience and need it to be accessible to their needs. And we think EnableAll can deliver on all of those things.
So I really like this. And I think one of the things I like most about the marketplace is surely it's going to make, for people that don't have an impairment currently, like myself, it's going to make a more pleasant buying experience, because if it's accessible for everyone, then surely for someone that's able-bodied, it's going to be super, super accessible and a really pleasant buying experience.
Well, our strap line, Chris, is we are looking to build a marketplace that is a brilliant experience for all customers that so happens to be fully accessible. And I do think, we are talking about increasingly consumers are being conscientious consumers, and they want to invest in brands that take disability, diversity, inclusion really seriously. And that's what we're going to do, because we're going to open up for everyone, which I understand was what the internet was originally intended for, and do it in a way that you can personalize if you need it personalized, but it's just a great experience. So we are not creating, and let me be really clear to everyone, what we're not doing is creating a ghetto for disabled online customers. So if you're disabled, you go to EnableAll. If you're not disabled, you go somewhere else. This is an experience for all that happens to be fully accessible.
So, Kevin, I want to dig a little bit more into the numbers. And as MD of EnableAll, I'm afraid I'm going to fire this one at you. What is the can you talk a little bit more about the way that you're going to gain consumers? And I've got to be brutally honest, if you've got people that want to buy and a ready pool of buyers, the sellers will come. So we'll get to the seller proposition in a minute. But you talked about the kind of the circle of helping those with disabilities, donating to charity, sending the money to the charity, encouraging the charity to help sign up even more members. But can you talk a bit more about that flywheel effect and how you're going to get to 1.5 million users in the first couple of years?
Sure. So it's multiple facets. The first point is going to be leveraging our network with charities and social media and social influencers. So we already have connections with a number of social influencers, and we've got some folks who we are going to be approaching. If you look at just the top 15 social influencers in this space, really focused on accessibility, they have a reach of 2 million people, and these are people who are really engaged, talking about the lack of accessibility across all websites. So, the first couple that I've spoken to are on board already, and they want this kind of technology. So we're not going to struggle to find these people. We're going to struggle how we coordinate the messaging. The second element is so there's a huge reach there, and when you look at people who are already influencing in this space, we've had a huge amount of engagement across the space. Lucy Hawkins at our launch event in Dubai was so impressed with this as well. She was really positive about the whole experience. So there's a lot of people out there who are willing to talk about this stuff. Because of who we are and where we sit in our investment place, our parent division, CareTech, they've got charity foundations. And they donate an awful lot of charity in the disability space already. That gives us quite a lot of connections into charities across the UK and the major charities. So we will be speaking to the majority of charities who have got scale up there. For example, I've already been on the RNIB Connect Radio, an interview on there, and we'll be doing follow-up radio shows for them. And there will be a number of other series of communications going out through the charities. And our estimate at the moment is that charity outreach will hit somewhere between 2 and 4 million through the launch 3 or 4 months. We're then supporting that with Facebook. We are working with a marketing agency who've already started their work. They've identified 250,000 people with disability actively engaged in Facebook, and I think we've identified nearly another 100,000 who sit in the carer space. So you start compiling up the numbers. The current reach of interested parties in this space that we think we'll be going after in the first 6 months is around 4 million. We don't have to convert an awful lot of those to get a very big number in year one. I think some of our challenges will be to pace the first 3 or 4 months as we do some very rapid learning and tweak the first phase, while we get as many sellers and as many categories represented heading into the peak season for November. So I think pacing will be some of our challenge, given the conversations I've had. And the conversations I've had with sellers to date, it's not huge. I'd say it's about a dozen. I've had 0 saying no, and most of those conversations are less than 5 minutes. So, when we go through the detailing and get into it, it's a very easy conversation to have.
Now, I may be about to make your problem a little bit worse on the pacing side, because I'm going to ask a question. If I'm running a charity and I like this idea, and I like the idea of sending people to an accessible marketplace, and I even more like the idea that when they spend money that they can donate back to me to help support the charity, how do they get in touch with you? How can they get involved? Or is it too soon for them to come knocking on your door?
Write to kcooper@enableall.com, and I will get that email picked up, and we will organise the conversation through ourselves. So we're launching internally what we're calling a community committee, which is going to sit across our group, and I think I've now got an external person to help us out on that. So the CEO of our charity foundations will be part of that community, and that's how we're going to deal with it. It's through helping each other out as a group. Email me directly, and we'll get this conversation started.
Fantastic. So that's taking care of the charity side. Now, the side that most of our audience are really going to be interested in is the selling side, the sales proposition. So first of all, just remind us of those categories to start off. I think it was home and living, clothing, and what was the other category?
Beauty.
Beauty. So they're the kickoff categories. So sellers in those categories contact you straight away. Now, I'm really interested in the experience. I know you said you got Channel Advisor, Limworks, Shopify, Salesforce, I think it was, already on, and a couple more to come. So the actual mechanics of listing and managing on the marketplace should be, yes, there's some integration work to do, but if you use one of those platforms, it's minimal. But tell me, we've had a question in terms of accessibility. What are some of the key aspects and features that sets your marketplace aside against the others? And more importantly, from the seller community perspective, what do they need to do with their listings to make them accessible? And there's no good having a fantastically accessible website and then I slap a listing up, which is full of HTML and color and everything, and totally isn't accessible. So what do sellers need to be prepared for to make sure that their listings are also accessible?
So let me do that in reverse for you. The sellers need to do no work different to what they're already doing to get their products loaded into our system. We have built inside the system a module that will be fully integrated, that essentially will take any content that any seller publishes and audit. There's an automated audit process in there that scores all content and will come back with a scorecard. And the scorecard is very simple: green, amber, red. Green, it's all good, it's AAA standard, it will publish next time you publish out. Amber, it meets the standard, it could be improved, but we're allowed to go live. And red means it's a fail, and essentially needs to be corrected. So there's a scoring system. Now, alongside the scoring system, if you get an amber or red, you will have some suggestions of how to make it accessibility ready. And you can either say, yes, go ahead and make those changes for me, and our system will make those changes and get them ready to a green state, or you can go and make the edits yourself. So yeah, there's an automated tool that we've embedded and we've built, and that's one of our USPs, that will take all content and make sure it's AAA standard for publish. So they don't need to do anything different today. We will handle that for them. And as we grow and build a team, we'll be building a team to help advise and help generate that content with them as part of our solution set. So nothing needs to be done. It's handled on our end and fed back. In terms of differences that we do versus other websites that are out there, well, obviously having this fundamental tool that makes sure all content's AAA standard is a big differentiator. However, on the customer experience itself, because we've built this accessible first, so we haven't gone mobile first, we've gone accessible first. The entire stack of how we build and draw pages and render stuff on websites means that you don't get redraw, you don't get reflow. When an individual user sets up the site to their particular disability, which we're aiming to get this live day one, it may be a few weeks late. When you set your account up, you say what your disability is, and they can get some things predefined for you. For example, dyslexia. We have embedded a dyslexia-based font system. So if you tell us that that's your issue, and you need dyslexia fonts, the site changes for you across the board. But because of how we built it, the redraw then when each page draws, because it doesn't change that, it doesn't layer those changes on every page. It does it from the architecture at the base. We pass all the scores, which is AAA requirement of redraw. There aren't the pop-ups because we don't need to. We've had to figure out different ways of covering those pop-ups. So color blindness. There are multiple versions of color blindness that we can give you. The way that screen readers interact with us, because we've developed it from those technologies from the ground up, the screen readers will work, and the whole sequencing of how they work it basically means we've got a wider remit to them. We also recognize that you may have been through some navigation screens that you don't need to go through every time, because if you actually use a screen reader on a multiple page shopping journey, or even tab navigation, essentially, if you've got a tab to different places around a page, and then you've got to go to the next page and then tab again, you're going from the top all the way through those menus again. So if you're clicking halfway down the page, and that's where your button is to act on, you tend to be tapping through an awful lot. So we're giving functionality that allows you to skip those navigations, and it starts building that interactively with your journey. And because of the breadth of features we're building in, we cover a much wider remit of disabilities from day one. Will we have every disability covered? No, I don't think we're going to have them all covered from day one. And that's why we're building a community committee. We don't see it as our customer base as customers. We see them as a community. And so we're building in the chat systems won't be a customer service chat. It's going to be a three-way peer-to-peer and customer service chat. So we're going to have active listeners out there. We want our community to tell us where we need to improve and which disabilities we need to encourage to expand into. And that's where we're focusing all of our dev energies into. And our third party, which I can't announce today, unfortunately, because we're still going through some legals, the platform that's behind all this, they're also very energetic about getting this right. So we're not doing it all ourselves. We're focusing on all of the front-end experience and having an enterprise solution that's developing alongside us for what our sellers can get out of it as well.
Fantastic. And Mike, coming back to you, what would you say to sellers that are still with us and listened so far and they're thinking, it's an awful lot of effort to adopt a new marketplace, even if I am using sort of Channelise or Limworks or something that's already integrated, it's still a lot of work. And realistically, I can only integrate one or maybe two marketplaces in a year, because by the time Christmas is out the way and I choose a marketplace, I integrate them. This year, we've got the Winter Olympics and Paralympics coming up. Then we've got Valentine's Day, we've got Easter, Mother's Day, we've got the Queen's Jubilee, we've got Prime Day, and before we know it, we're back into Q4. So there's limited time. Why should they choose to integrate with EnableAll this year as opposed to another marketplace?
Yeah, great. Yeah, and the reason I'm smiling, Chris, is that, Kevin was recruited 3 months ago, steeped in e-commerce and not really accessibility. And 11 weeks on, he can talk eloquently about accessibility and why it's so fundamentally important and how it works. And I think with that passion, and the reason I think EnableAll is because it is so different. It is reaching out to a community, a disability market that is unable, have barriers in place to access the online world. And actually, commercially, it's a new market. You're not trying to compete with existing customers. It's a new group of people. Two, post-COVID, or in the phase we currently are, there is a real drive by investors, by staff, and by customers to see social impact and to see their brands showing social impact. And I think I was talking to a group of people the other day, and I said, in many ways, we see ourselves as the Anita Roddick of 2022, where 30 years ago, I suspect people said to her, oh my God, why environmentally friendly? There's so many other things can be done. Because I think we're at a time in the world where this is really important. And if you're sitting there, 92% of people, Chris, will know someone in their family or close network who has a disability. And whether that's dyslexia, autism, living with cancer, recovered from cancer, wheelchair user. And you ask yourself the question, would I want that individual to come on my marketplace and click off because it's not accessible for them? And the answer's got to be no. And I think Kevin said to you, and actually, if you want to do it, you don't have to do anything. We'll do it for you. And so I can see win-win-wins. I can't see many downsides. And I think this stands out as something different in the marketplace. And that's why I think it's so relevant. It has resonance with so many people. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's very much a case of why wouldn't you? And I think that the ultimate's got to be to take a long, hard look at your business and say, is my website AAA accessible? Because if not, I can make it make my product set accessible with EnableAll. Or you know what, I could go back and spend tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, making my website AAA accessible. But if you're not going to do that, then at least put your products on EnableAll.
Yes. I think just to jump in there, I think the number I read was 27% of disabled people would use the internet if it's accessible for them. That's a huge number. And when you look at all of the numbers and you look at the differential between households with broadband, households with desktops, and you start going through all the data, 27 might be the surveyed number. The data tells me it's around 15 to 20% of people would use more internet solutions and services if they could. It is a huge audience. Why now? Well, from day of announcement back on 3rd of December, we had an embargo on the PR. As soon as the embargo was lifted, Mike was asked to go on BBC One, BBC Worldwide for an interview. We've had 3 or 4 other big media interviews, and our coverage just in media is 2.5 million. As people sign up in the early days, we're going to be building, and we're going to building on sort of our PR side, a partners page. Everybody who signs up early and gets behind us will be on that partners page. So, it is a large audience. Get on early. Take advantage of the PR that's going to come on the back of it, because we are getting the PR, and go on the journey with us. I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed. But you're right. Diverting energy, you've got to buy into, is the scale here? Is it worth the investment? If you believe the scale's there and it's worth your investment, the earlier you get in, the better you're going to deal with it, because we are going to be building PR around this as well.
And I've got to say, looking at the sort of the macroeconomic environment at the moment, it is looking a bit tough for e-commerce out there. We know inflation's high, consumer confidence is falling, people are getting hit with higher energy prices, the weekly shop's going up. The money is tight, and I think on your website, on marketplaces, people that were spending like mad 2 years ago are maybe not spending as much now. And a business really has to make some hard choices. Do you try marketing to people with less money, or do you take the decision, let's pick an overseas marketplace to sell on? Or EnableAll is opening up an entirely new subset of people that haven't been buying with you before that can buy from you now. So if you're worried about consumer confidence and sales going down, EnableAll, a UK marketplace for a UK seller, has got to be a pretty good bet, I would have thought, that you can increase your turnover and maintain profitability, even if sales are slipping from your normal customers. Now, I've got another interesting question come up, and I don't know if this is one for you, Mike, or for Kevin. Will you have any programs for onboarding new sellers with disabilities? We talked about buyers with disabilities. How accessible is EnableAll going to be for sellers that have got accessibility issues?
I'll take that, Mike.
Yeah.
Great question. Day one, it won't be AAA. At some point, and we're going to be fairly aggressive. It's ideally within year one. We are being very ambitious. The plan is, the way we've written the 2 functional tools that make our platform, our front end experience work. So the way we've written the technology that draws the web pages, and the way we've written the content audit tool, they are going to be modules in our architecture, and our architecture is a Mac first solution. It's API solution. So the content audit tool is going to be plugged in through the APIs. Our intent is to take the tool that does the front end redraw and weave that into the back office operations to make the back office operations AAA compliant as well. So we are intent, as fast as possible, to make the back office screens that all of our employees use to manage the business, as well as our sellers, is also AAA compliant. Ultimately, my vision is that we would be developing how we operate almost as a training center for people with disabilities into the e-commerce space, and giving back to the industry in that way as well. So, we do have a vision in that space, and we are going to be targeting it from but we're already thinking about how we build it now. We've got some conversations next week to get that to be AAA.
Fantastic. I think this is a really big ask, to be honest, to be AAA on both the buy side and the sell side. It's an amazing ambition, and I look forward to seeing it come true. Now, I want to go back to focus on sellers. As I said, if you've got buyers, sellers will want to sign up, and in fact, they should want to sign up just for the fact that it's accessible. But these are businesses, and they've got to make a decision on not where to put their money all of the time, but where to put their focus and their time. So can you talk me through the journey between now and sort of March, April when you launch? If a seller's interested, I know you said sign up by email, then you'll get a contact, March, April's launch time. But talk to me a little bit about the timeline for them. When do they sign up? When do they have to start paying? When do you need their listings uploaded by? Any other requirements they need? Do they have to be a limited company, or can you accept a sole trader or a limited partnership? Can anyone sell on the platform? Do I have to be a certain size? Do I need a minimum number of product SKUs? Talk to me about the shape of the selling journey from today and until the day the platform launches and opens to buyers.
Great question. So, like I said earlier, we're still working through the timeline, but the current target is start onboarding during March, which basically means we will open up the architecture for us to invite sellers. And so register on the current website we've got out there. We will then invite sellers, once we've had a conversation with them, onto the platform. There is a predefined workflow where they go through that workflow. They can either connect through one of our integrations. They can upload products through a CSV. They can add products individually as well within the platform if they so desire. So that will open up at some point in March where we'll start that journey, and we will start slow. We will do the first few very, very manually and handhold through to make sure we've got it all right, and then we'll open the gates out. And we'll have a team in place to help that process. So that's number one. Number two, yes, you need to be a UK limited company. We are going to be slightly stricter in the first few months, purely and simply to protect all parties. So we don't have anybody that slips through the net. So yes, a UK limited company. I can't remember the definition, but I think you have to have been registered and trading for at least 2 years. So again, we know you've got some robust processes behind there, and that'll be part of the questionnaires we'll be sending out. Is how long have you been trading, what type of products you trade on, what's your volume. There is no minimum volume. I'm happy for very small people to be trading on this platform and very large people to be trading on the platform. It comes down to credibility of your operations, of how you take orders, how you process, you pick, pack, ship those orders, and how you get them to the customers. That's the bit that's most important to me. Once we've got you on board, the anticipation is that the integrations will take care of most of the strain. So getting products on board will be relatively straightforward. Payment we're going through right now. We're trying to get one of two payment providers on board. But the intent is we're going to be the merchant record. So as sales come through, as orders come through, we will take the payment authorization up front. The intent is that the point the products are shipped, we will then transfer over the revenue for that individual shipment minus our commissions. So the intent is to transfer cash at the point of shipment and not have a 30-day hold off. The individual monthly subscriptions will be taken in a separate cycle on a monthly basis. And we're going to go on the policy, if you don't sell on the platform over a minimum, so if you don't sell more than £500 in a given month, the following month's commissions don't get taken. The following month's subscriptions don't get taken. So there's a minimum. You've got to get over a certain threshold to start paying the monthly subscriptions. And we're going with a straight basic. Everybody has the same £20 subscription. Over time, we're going to develop that into a premium that's the basic. We're going to have a plus and then a premium package. We haven't worked out the premium package yet. We're keeping it very simple to get this off the ground. To make it as easy for people to interact with us while we show how many consumers we can get on there as quick as possible to give them the confidence they've made good decisions. Because once we've got that, then we can run both the seller and the buyer acquisition programs in parallel.
Fantastic. Now, I've got a question which may be a little unfair. It's great having an accessible marketplace, but what about accessible deliveries? If if I was in a wheelchair, courier knocks on the door, I try to get to the door, they've rung the bell twice and they've run off before I get to the door. Have you got anything in place to at least manage messaging through from the purchase to the carrier, or anything to assist with making sure that the deliveries do happen and people with accessibility issues don't miss out on the final step, which is actually getting their item?
I think you're absolutely right, and what we're trying to do, Chris, is to create a profile and understanding of accessibility, and this is the starting place. And I probably will go, and at one level, EnableAll and Purple, we will be providing advice and guidance to those businesses on all things disability. And I think, I absolutely agree with you. The delivery and customer service and making sure delivery drivers understand the basics of good customer service for disabled people is critically important. But I go one step further and think, we've got to start thinking about the packaging and whether we can make packaging more accessible. So it's an entire end-to-end accessibility kind of chain. And I guess Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've got to start somewhere, and it's with the listing and it's with the marketplace. But I think we're trying to, to use the job, we're trying to normalize this. And Kevin was, people like me have been waiting 15, 20 years for a good online experience. Yeah. And there's so many more people out there like me. And quite frankly, if we get the front end right and the numbers move, and I think, we're taking a chance on the fact that, let's get merchants, let's get sellers on, let them see the size of the market and the opportunity. And actually that will drive other agendas and to make the whole kind of business end-to-end kind of accessible. So this is the start of the journey. We've got to prove to people, and back to your question, we've got to prove to sellers that disability and the disability market is a commercial opportunity. Yeah. Because ultimately, that is what is, for all the social impact, it's a good thing to do. Ultimately, is this a commercial opportunity? And if the answer to that is yes, then you engage them and you say, here is now the opportunity to maximize this market, and here are the things that you can do with it.
And I have to be honest, from a seller community perspective, it really is about the commercial opportunity. And I can't emphasize that enough. People can be very charitable in their personal life, whether it be for accessibility or other charities, whether it be your favourite cat or dog's charity or birds charity. But when it comes down to business, it's got to make financial sense. So I think it might be worth you just, again, outlining the number of people in the UK that could use this marketplace and their spending power that currently is up for grabs.
No, absolutely. And so we are talking about 14.1 million disabled people.
So hang on a minute, Mike. Yeah, 14.1 million. That's close to a quarter of the UK population.
It's 22%, Chris. That is the absolute figure when you include mental health, people recovering from cancer, long-term health conditions, dyslexia, autism. That is the number. And as I said, earlier, people think disability, they think wheelchair users. That is a minor fraction. And you can make changes to your marketplace to make the experience for people with dyslexia, people with colourblindness, so much bigger. And that market, what we call the purple pound, or what is called the purple pound, which is £274 billion per annum in the UK, which is rising at 14% per annum. because clearly there is a correlation between disability and age as well. And so there is a huge, and all I'll say is, as of the latest statistics, only 10% of businesses have any kind of strategy to access this market. So, for us, this is about new customers. This is not about winning customers from other sites. I think if we're successful, it might attract other people, but this is a new untapped market. And for all the things you're saying about the economy, the tightness and everything else, actually what we're offering today is a £274 billion untapped market for which we can give you very quickly and very easily and very cheaply a solution to access. And I think that is where we are. And I think that is why EnableAll would be a hugely interesting proposition for sellers listening today.
So I think it's 22%. When you say it's 22% of the UK population, that's a staggeringly large number, as is the spending power they've got. So, Kevin, just remind me again, if someone wants to, they're not signing up today, but if they want to express interest and for you to keep them informed of when they can sign up, and it may be that they're not in the home and garden, clothing or beauty category, so it may take a little longer. But for someone today that just wants to put a stake in the ground and say, yep, send me some information when you're ready, where do they go? How do they get in touch?
Best place is enableall.com/merchant, or just go to enableall.com. That's where we're growing our consumer base. There's a link in there for merchants. Fill in the form, and that comes through to us on our CRM tools. Otherwise, email me directly at kcooper@enableall.com. Yeah, I'm still in that new boy phase where my inbox isn't quite so bad as it used to be, and my diary isn't quite so full as it used to be in my previous e-com role.
Let's do our best to make it too full for you. I would encourage every retailer. Limitations at the moment: you need to be a limited company. You need to have been trading for 2 years. But if you're a retailer, whether you sell on marketplaces, whether you sell on your own website, whether you're mainly a high street but have been transitioning to internet during the pandemic, enableall.com/merchants or kcooper@enableall.com. Get signed up. You're not committing to anything today. You're just saying, when you're ready in March to sign up sellers, make sure I'm on the list that gets notified so that I'm not going to miss out. And then you can make your decision a couple of months down the line, but get on the list now to make sure that you're notified. Kevin and Mike, we are coming to the end now. I think we've got about a minute left. Is there any final messages that you've got to the Tame Bay community of retailers, brands and merchants? One last message for them to tell them why they should be interested.
So for me, this for me is an opportunity to make a real difference. The one video I meant to play earlier, and I got carried away with telling everybody who we are. Imagine a world where people who haven't been able to buy online ever can suddenly at Christmas buy their Christmas gifts for loved ones without assistance for the first time. Now you put that into context of 22% of the population. I'm inspired by how big this potential is, and talking to these folks, how much they really want it, and the loyalty will come. So for me, it's everything that this represents and how big it could be. And everybody who gets on board with this quickly and early, you will go on our partners page, and we will be referencing that through all our PR. So it's worthwhile from that point of view as well.
Fantastic. And Mike, final message from you.
Yeah, thank you. I think what we've articulated and what you've helped us articulate today, Chris, is the economics, the commercial reasons why you should do it, the social reasons why you should do it. And I just go back to that stat about 92% of us knowing someone in our family who's disabled or someone in our close network. And the question you need to ask yourself as you walk away today, if that was your relative, that was your auntie, grandma, cousin, niece, nephew, would you want them to access your business or not be able to access it simply because they have a disability? And the answer is no. And if you can do that easily, why wouldn't you? So my message is, go on, just do it.
Yeah. Mike, Kevin, we have come to the end of our time. Thank you so much for being part of Tame Bay Live. And it goes without saying, we'll be having more coverage of EnableAll on Tame Bay in the near future, so that if you are interested, we'll make sure you get some reminders. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.